A man of character, responsibility, and resourcefulness. Become that man and join us on the journey towards manhood, finding a better person within. Embrace Growth is offering the Honor, Integrity, and Mastery Workshop in Toronto, Yerevan, and Los Angeles. Sign up today at embracegrowth.com and see the transformation in your life.
Welcome to Love Talk. My name is Gregory Morgan, and I am the co-founder with my wife, Dr. Zita Sayan, of Embrace Growth, and that is an international community based on integrity, honor, communication, and what works and doesn't work in relationships. So one of the programs that we produce at Embrace Growth is this show called Love Talk, and of course my wife's show, Doña Ayesh. And throughout the world, in 5 different countries, about 28 workshops a year, the Honor, Integrity, and Mastery Workshop and the Advanced Honor, Integrity, and Mastery Workshops for men, as well as a 6-month program that is called the Hero's Journey, that is for our graduates, of course, only, and then the Women-Only Workshop, the Advanced Women-Only Workshop, and then an advanced 6-month program called Lovable and Adorable. So those are the backbone, if you will, of the work that we do for the public in Embrace Growth. And of course, we have private sessions in our office, on Skype, and by telephone. And you can find out all about that by visiting our website, but of course, and by looking us up on Google. But in any event, the basis, or the heart, if you will, of our work is based on simply not a moral or an ethical or religious values, but is based on simply what we have observed works and works consistently. So that's what I'd like to talk with you about today, and that I've dedicated this show to the idea of distinguishing integrity from morality and ethics. So I'm going to distinguish integrity from morality and ethics. I'm going to clarify the distinction, and hopefully I will do it in an articulate fashion so that you can get this. I realize that most of the people, if not all of the people that I'm speaking with today, I am dedicated to making a contribution that works and that serves this community in attaining all that is potentially available to you, so that you have relationships at work. I'm not saying that you don't have relationships at work, but in our experience of serving thousands and thousands of people, most of whom are of Iranian descent, we have found that there is a large amount of unworkability as this beautiful ancient culture, this antique culture of the Persian Empire, with traditions founded on what works, many of which were founded upon what works in general with humanity, but some of them were founded upon principles that worked back then and no longer work in today's world. And so as this beautiful ancient community has grown into the advanced world, there's been a lot of things, a lot of collisions, and particularly with people who have immigrated to other countries, learned other languages, adapted into new cultures, and then have raised children in the last 32 years, last couple of years, last 3 decades, have raised children in those new cultures who no longer see eye to eye with the values and traditions of a culture that was based on morality and ethics, which is a good thing. However, as we'll see throughout this discussion, it has its own inlaid problems because not everybody values the same thing. But when you separate yourself from morality and ethics, and I don't mean become immoral or unethical by any means. I mean when you distinguish morality and ethics as a domain in and of themselves, which has a workability that is limited, then you begin to see the issues or the problems that could arise when you are addressing something that simply either works or it doesn't work. So it could be said that integrity is like a law, like the law of gravity. Integrity is, it just is. It's not right or wrong, it's not good or bad. And just like the law of gravity, if you try to defy or break the law of gravity, unless you have some kind of safety backup equipment, you will get hurt. The law of gravity works whether you like it or not, whether you defy it or not, whether you follow it or not, whether you believe in it or you don't believe in it. It's like saying I don't believe in gravity. Gravity is something that consistently works, and when it doesn't, when it's even then, there are other laws of physics in this particular case that are at play. There is no case in which gravity is not at work. Okay, and that's been amply proven mathematically in every other way. So to say that I believe in gravity, or I believe gravity is a good thing, or people that don't have gravity are bad, or only people with gravity are good. Can you see how simplistic and sort of beside the point that conversation would become very quickly? Most of us have received our information about what integrity is from people who never actually examined what integrity is, and so they were handed down a right, wrong, good, bad, moralistic value judgment about integrity. And so we're left with, as children, if you will, that somehow only really, really good people have integrity. And if I don't have integrity, then I must be one of those bad people. And so because I don't want to suffer the consequences of being a bad person, and I want to be a good person, I must look as if I have integrity. And so because human beings are brilliant at mimicking, that's how we learn language, that's how we learn to walk, that's how we learn facial gestures and what they mean. That's how we learn so many things, is because we are brilliant at seeing. They say monkey see, monkey do. Well, we're the smartest of all the monkeys. We can see and mimic, make our voice sound like, make our posture be like, make our eyes and facial expressions appear to be something they are not. We're very good at mimicking or masquerading as something. And so human beings are brilliant at that. We're the best liars on the planet. And so if we fundamentally believe that we're one of those wrong persons because we've done things that we've been scolded for as children, we've been shouted at, we've been smacked by our parents, we've been embarrassed publicly by our teachers and coaches, we may have even been threatened and physically injured over things that we shouldn't have done or that they said we shouldn't have done, and so we were made to be wrong, and we were also told in not so subtle ways that somehow this thing called integrity was the sort of magic potion or the medicine or the good fix for all of this wrongness that we have. So because we could never quite be right with ourselves and with everybody else, we could never please everybody all of the time and be true to ourselves as well, we have a background conversation that we're somehow wrong or immoral or unethical or unworthy of being admired, loved, supported, honored, cherished. And so we mastered, I mean really mastered, some are better than others, this idea of looking good, looking like I'm a good person, or I'm an honest person, or I'm an ethical person, or I wouldn't think of doing anything dishonest. Of course, I would only do the right thing. We've learned all the gestures. You see, I'm mimicking some of the gestures of somebody who feigns humility, who fakes humility. It's a feigned humility. In fact, it's masking that we don't really feel right or honest or good or true about ourselves, and so we are attempting to look good and to be good and to appear good so as to receive the rewards of the good people right? And to not receive the punishment and the embarrassment and the isolation of the bad people. I keep going over that because I want you to see that this whole good, bad, right, wrong conversation that you and I have grown up into and have inherited as human beings, regardless of our culture. You were born in Iran, I was born in Oklahoma. We had the same guilt, okay? Your guilt was, I don't know, about something else than mine perhaps, but nonetheless, the effect on your physiology, the effect on your automatic nervous system, the effect on your brain stem, the effect on your posture, the effect on your health, the effect on your relationship with other human beings, such that you could never actually truly be who you really are. You should never tell really and expose yourself truly. The profound effect of that has been that we grew up learning that the way to survive, the way to get on around here, the way to get along with others and to have the rewards is to present a false face, to present a way of being and appearing that appeared to be something that we ourselves truly did not believe. In other words, without truly believing in yourself and presenting yourself as you truly are, there's always some doubt as to whether you're worthy of love, worthy of all the good things that, remember, those good people get. And there's always this fear that you're driven to move away from, fearfully, all those bad things that the bad people get, right? You know those people that you meet and you fall in love with them, and as soon as you meet them and you can't wait to be around them again, and you want to marry them and you want to make love to them and you want to do everything for them and cherish them and honor them and take good care of them. Guess what they're doing? They're doing the same thing you're doing, trying to look good and avoid looking bad, trying to be lovable and to appear to be honorable and have this thing that nobody really quite has examined thoroughly. Well, a lot of people have, in fact, and I'm just reporting on my findings. They're attempting to appear to have integrity, to be, but it's not integrity that they're attempting to have. And that's what I want to distinguish in the show today, is that it is not they're not actually attempting to have integrity, because you already have that. You don't have to try. And I'll get back to that in a minute. I know that's a profound flip for a lot of people, but you already have integrity. You came with it. It's inborn. It's part of you. It's a who you are phenomenon. However, what doesn't have integrity, what has no integrity, what's the opposite of integrity in many ways, is appearing or attempting to appear or to present oneself as having something that they've never thoroughly examined and certainly don't understand because everybody else said it was the right thing to have, this thing called integrity. So can you see what a lie that would be, which would be the opposite of even our own idea of what integrity is, right or wrong, good or bad, moralistically or ethically correct. If you have this idea that maybe lying or appearing to be something that you're not might not be ethically or morally correct, then you're even breaking your own morals and ethics when you attempt to appear that you are something that you are not. And I'm not saying that you're not. Just because you don't believe that you are, just because you believe you have no integrity, just because you believe that you are lacking in honor, just because you believe that you haven't lived up to your fullest potential, does not mean that it is true. Just because you believe it does not mean that it is true. What's true is that you and I are born with an innate sense of integrity, just like we are born with an innate knowledge of gravity. You understand gravity before you ever get out of the womb. Before you're ever born, there is a sense of gravity and understanding of that. You know, you don't come out and start trying to fly and levitate and stuff. We all understand that there's a downness to things, and just like there is a downness to things that is consistent and constant, and you can count on it, and if you learn to befriend it, you see, if you're a friend with gravity, if gravity serves you, then your life becomes very easy, because then you begin to learn to use gravity in ways, wondrous and delicious ways that actually are very creative. As a dancer and as a martial artist throughout much of my lifetime, our biggest challenge and our greatest friend was the phenomenon and the reliability of gravity. It was something that it is a constant that is always there, and just like gravity, not to make too fine a point of it, integrity is the same. It is always there, and I'm going to say that without it, nothing will work. Without integrity, nothing works. It simply does not work. Without gravity, your world and my world as you know it would not work. Wouldn't it be bizarre if all of a sudden this stuff all just started going wherever it goes, right? Including you and the chair you're sitting on and the television you're watching and your car outside. If there was no gravity, nothing would work. Without integrity, in very much a parallel way, very much the same way, nothing works. It simply does not work. So integrity is completely devoid, if you will. It's completely distinct. It's separate from morals. Because you see, with morals, there's got to be something that's right and something that's wrong. You can't have wrong without right, and you can't have right without wrong. There's no just right, there's no just wrong. They are absolutely dependent upon each other. You take away one and the other one disappears. So there is no right or wrong in integrity. I'm not saying that there's not things that are right and not things that are wrong in the world of morality and ethics. There is right and wrong, obviously. But if you look underneath what they say is right and what they say is wrong, what you will find is a very constant principle, and there was simply that people made it wrong because it doesn't work. People made it right because it works. Right and wrong is merely an afterthought, a report, a judgment or an evaluation of something that just is. If I drop this paper and it falls to the ground, that just is what it is. It's just, that's what works. That's in harmony with a principle called gravity that is there whether I like it or not and whether I call it right or not. Now, if I drop this paper and it falls to the ground and I go, that's the right thing to do, and any paper that doesn't fall to the ground is wrong and is evil and bad and, you know, blah, 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 right? It's like if I made up a story about what just is right or wrong. I mean, just what works or doesn't work, and I called it right or wrong. And then later we came along and said, well, good people do the right thing, and then bad people do the wrong thing, so they're wrong and bad. Really, all it is just what works and doesn't work. And it's vitally, vitally important that in your life and in my life, if you want your life to work, if you want to have vitality, if you want to have success, if you want to have ease and grace and poise and power, real personal power to cause things and make things happen in your life, and to avoid those things which you don't want to happen by simply being in the right place at the right time and doing the right thing. And I don't mean right like right and wrong. I mean like the thing that works. Like the thing that works. Simply that. If you want to get in your car and drive it forward, you could say, well, it's wrong to turn around backwards in the seat and try to drive the car while driving forward. It's not wrong. It doesn't work very well. There may be some people that could actually do it. I wouldn't want to be on the same road with them. Yes? So it's not that they're right or wrong or good or bad. You could say, well, if I want to go down the road, down the middle of the road, and everybody else can go around me on either side, I don't care. That wouldn't be the wrong thing to do, but it wouldn't work for very long. And so there are people, law enforcement people, that enforce certain laws in case people don't understand the laws. But there are certain laws like gravity that don't need enforcing. We don't need law officers to make sure that people don't break the law of gravity. And so it is true also with integrity. Once you grasp this distinction that it's not right or wrong, good or bad, it's simply what works and doesn't work, then your life becomes very simple because you simply, instead of saying, oh, what's the right thing to do, you can simply ask yourself, well, what has the most integrity? What works? What works here? A whole other part of your brain starts to open up. It actually gets happy because then the answers are available. The answers are available free of judgment and morality and guilt and shame and all of those kinds of things that come along with a lot of the decisions that you have to make in life. If you want to be happy, if you want to be successful, if you want to have love and joy and vitality in your life, you will inevitably, living in a world of right, wrong, good, bad, and all of that, you will inevitably have to make some decisions in your life that will be difficult or painful. Decisions that you have no preparation for having had to make. Nobody taught you. You haven't been prepared for this in school or by your parents or your teachers or coaches. For the most part, you will come up against choices and decisions in your life in which you will be called upon to make very tough and sometimes painful decisions that may hurt yourself and they may hurt others. And you have to ask yourself what's going to work. And if you are overwhelmed by blame, shame, guilt, right, wrong, good, bad, ethical, unethical, then you will be influenced in your decision making, and you may or may not make correct decisions. Nobody wants to hurt anybody else, at least I hope not, and I'm sure that there are people that do want to hurt others. I'm not foolish, and I've wanted to hurt some others myself sometimes. I understand that urge. If your decisions and choices in life are made towards what works and what doesn't work, then you will be able to move forward in ways that will baffle others. Others will be astounded at how quickly and effectively you move forward and advance in life, and it will seem almost miraculous to those who don't understand the laws, simple integrity. It's like somebody that if somebody didn't understand the law of gravity and they kept trying to defy it and they were constantly hurt, and every time you saw them, you know, they were walking on a crutch or they had a broken arm or an ankle or a bandage on their head, and you know, and you never did. They're like, how do you get through life without getting banged up? To them, it would be astounding. You would be simply following the law of gravity and going about your way, whereas they somehow didn't believe in it, or they thought they were free from it, or they didn't have to do what others do, and so they would keep getting hurt. And just so you really understand the point, by simply doing what works, following integrity, your integrity, not my integrity, your integrity. Each of us has our own pattern of what works and doesn't work. So I can't tell you what's right and wrong or good and bad in your life, and I wouldn't try to. Many of the people that have watched these shows or have taken the workshops or listened to our books or CDs or DVDs sometimes get the idea that we are making some kind of a moral or ethical judgment about things, or that we're lacking morals or ethics, and none of that is actually true. It's simply that the place that we're trying to watch, the place that we're attempting to arrive at, is always what works here and now. Not what works for everybody, everywhere, all the time, for eternity, but what's working right now, what works. And what has worked so much and so often that it's predictable it's going to work again. These are the principles behind what we're teaching at Embrace Growth. And I'm going to take a break, and I want to come back to this, and I'd like to hear your questions, your call-ins, any, and what's going on in your life, but any questions you have about these distinctions of integrity versus ethics and morals. These are the things that I really want to talk about today and attempt to help you distinguish in your own life so that you can have more power, more love, more joy, more fulfillment, and more success in your life.
Embrace Growth has a new home online where you can easily register for workshops and events, order from the online store, and be part of the worldwide community of Embrace Growth graduates. You'll be able to see Dr. Rosita Sayan and Mr. Gregory Morgan in your favorite seminars. Visit us today at embracegrowth.com.
در کارگاه‌های آموزشی بانوان به رهبری دکتر آزیتا سایان با دستیابی به اهمیت و ارزش واقعی خود، قدرت زنانگی و آرامش خود را بازیابید. محیطی مناسب و هیجان انگیز برای رشد و شکوفایی عشق، ازدواج و خانواده خلق کنید. زنی شاد باشید، قلب مردان را بشناسید و آنها را درک کنید. کارگاه آموزشی بانوان ایروان 14 تا 16 دسامبر، اروپا 20 تا 22 آپریل. برای ثبت نام با تخفیف ویژه پاییزی با شماره 310 460 2600 تماس بگیرید.
Welcome to the Embrace Growth app. There's a new way to communicate and join in. Create your free account online and sign into the app. Manage your profile on the go and choose between English or Farsi. Register for events and schedule appointments more easily than ever. Stream audio, video, and download books all over Wi-Fi or cellular. Sign up for workshops and seminars right on your phone. And access your audio and video library in the palm of your hand. Take your favorite lessons from Dr. Azita Sayan and Mr. Gregory Morgan with you. Download it today on the App Store.
Welcome back to Love Talk. I'm Gregory Morgan, and today I'm talking about the distinction between honor, integrity, and ethics and morals. I'm distinguishing integrity as just simply what works and doesn't work. Now I want to take that a step further and say simply that the basis of integrity is honoring your word. Most people never get this point. You and I live in a world of agreements. What makes the world move forward is the agreements or the commitments that we make and keep. So in a relationship, for example, a marriage, in a business relationship, in a relationship between parents and children, in a relationship between drivers and drivers, on a football field, anywhere you want to look at it, what moves forward is making agreements and then keeping the agreements. Making the agreements and then keeping the agreements and then dealing with whatever comes up out of having kept your agreements, or if you broke your agreement, if you broke your word, going back, acknowledging it, and what we call cleaning up the mess, dealing with whatever the outcome, the fallout, the mess, if you will, that gets made when you break your word. So honoring your word is the very basis of integrity. Giving your word and keeping your word. Now, there's keeping your word no matter what, and then there's keeping your word until it no longer is appropriate or doable, and then acknowledging that. Honoring your word and keeping your word now are being distinguished. So, I'm going to recap what I just said so it's really clear. The very first and most fundamental level of integrity, and now I'm talking about your personal integrity. I'm not talking about the structural integrity of a bridge or the integrity of your car or the brake system or your computer system. I'm talking about in human environment, as human beings who are fundamentally a creation of their word. Your life is a function of you having given your word and your commitment to things and kept your agreement. So in whatever measure of success, well-being, vitality, financial, emotional, sexual success you've had has had something to do with you making a commitment. And so even in making a commitment, even if it's to yourself, that commitment is you giving your word to yourself. I will do this. This shall be. I'm going to cause this to happen. I'm creating this and it will happen. Those are all ways of giving your word and then following through with your actions. So honoring your word gives you an actionable access to workability. Honoring your word is an action from the inner world. I've got an idea, a thought, a motion, a commitment. I speak my word. I say, I shall do this, I will do this, this shall be, this will happen on such and such a date. Whatever it is that you said, I will be there at a certain time. Whatever it is that you gave your word to, and then you honor your word. You honor your word as who you are, and you take the actions that are appropriate with that. Honoring your word gives you an actionable access to power, to workability, to success, completely free from moral, ethics, right, wrong, all the other judgments, blame, shame, guilt, all that stuff. You simply doing what you said you would do, when you said you would do it. That's honoring your word. Now, I'm going to take this a step further. Honoring your word and keeping your word. I'm now distinguishing those two because many people, most people, will fall into the trap of, I didn't honor my word, and then they go back to moral and ethics, therefore I'm wrong and bad. I did not honor my word. I did not keep my word. Excuse me, I'm correcting myself. I didn't keep my word, therefore I'm wrong and bad. So then they feel guilty, they punish themselves, they try to hide it, they lie about it, whatever. They do all the stuff that has everything to do with moral and ethics and right and wrong, good and bad, blame, shame, guilt, and all the stuff that's connected to that domain and has nothing to do with what works. If you're honoring your word, if you came to a place where you saw that you were not going to be able to deliver on something. Let's say you say, I'm going to be there at 7:30, and here it is 7:15, and you know that you're 20 minutes away from the place. I'm just taking a very simple, but yet common, especially here in Los Angeles, approach to this. The moment that you see that you're not going to be able to keep your word, here's how you honor your word. I gave my word, I'm going to honor my word. You contact the person's things that are expecting you there at 7:30, and you say, you know, I said I was going to be there at 7:30, but I can see that I'm not going to be there until X, whatever time that you're certain that you can be there. That would be honoring your word. It would also honor your relationship with the other person by showing them that you're A, trustworthy. It's not that the fact that you're late doesn't make you untrustworthy. It may make you not a good manager of your time, but it doesn't make you an untrustworthy person. So you've restored trust by simply saying, I'm not going to be there at the time I said I was. This is the time I'm going to be there. And then make sure you're there. Don't keep calling them saying, well, I think it's going to be another 5 minutes or something. Just give them a time that you know you can be there, and then be there then. That would be honoring your word. Do you understand the difference? You didn't keep your word, or your original word, you didn't keep your word. You revoked that. Now, if I was going to get very technical about it, you would say something like this, but it would sound weird. People who don't talk like this. But in a very technical sense, you would say, you know, I told you that I promised I would be there at 7:30. I'm revoking that promise. Now, you don't really have to say this, but really that's what you're doing. I'm revoking that promise, and I would like to make a new promise. And that promise is that I will be there at 7:45, and I definitely will be there. Is there anything I need to do or that you need from me to make it right for you, having inconvenienced you? I apologize. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it right for you. Is there anything that you need from me? Now, most people will say, no, that's okay, or, yeah, you really inconvenienced me. Yeah, okay, I got that I inconvenienced you. Is there anything that I can do to make it right? What can I do to make it right for you? Showing a willingness to be not only honoring your word and trustworthy, making a new promise, because if you break your promise, what there is to do is to make a new one. Say, look, that other promise, I'm sorry I didn't keep it, or I can't keep it. If you want to honor your word, as soon as you know that you cannot keep your word, you notify anybody that's concerned about that. You get in touch with them and get in communication with them, and you say, that promise I made, I'm not going to be able to keep it. This is my new promise. What will work for you? Okay, so it's kind of a 3-step cleanup. First, acknowledge that you're going to break your word before you break it. That's honoring yourself as your word. That's maintaining your trustworthiness. I'm not going to be able to keep my word with you. I'm going to break my word. I'm sorry. I said I could do this. I can't do it. You know, I gave a simple example about like being on time, but it may be there's a lot of other things that you've promised that you won't be able to keep at some point in your life. And if you're able to keep all of your promises in your whole life, then you're playing too safe. You're living a little bitty tiny life that's never going to go anywhere. People in the world of success, people in the world of leadership know that great leaders make great promises. Promises that they're not sure if they're going to be able to keep. Now, there are leaders, immoral, unethical leaders, who make promises that they know at the time they're making them that they can't keep them. That's called a lie. When you make a promise that you know you can't keep, that's a lie. That's a betrayal. That is putting yourself forth as a trustworthy, honorable person so as to trick, fool, get something from, manipulate, cajole, or in some other way influence the outcome of things in your favor at someone else's cost with a lie. That's called lying, okay? I'm not talking about making promises you can't keep and you know you can't keep them. I'm talking about making promises that you're committed to, doing whatever it takes to make that come true, and then providing leadership to make sure that happens. Organizing the time, the energy, the material, the monies, the people, whatever it takes to make that thing that you promised happen, because you're going to honor your word and keep your promises. Now, that's a person who plays big. That's a person who moves the world forward. That's a person who, instead of staying stuck in things, in the same old job, the same old relationship, the same old habits, makes bold promises that, if your promises are bold, you'll be nervous when you make them. If your promises are something that's actually going to change life, push life forward, create something new and empowering, then you'll always feel a little nervous and a little scared. Get used to that. That's a good indicator. A little scared's good. Terrified is, you'll get used to that. The more you get used to being a little scared, the more you'll get used to being absolutely scared witless and doing it anyhow. That's called courage. Being scared to death and doing what you said you were going to do anyhow, that's called courage. Courage is not a lack of fear. Courage is doing what needs to be done because that's what you said you were going to do. In spite of your fear, in spite of your doubts, in spite of what everybody says about you, in spite of the disempowering and undermining intentions of the gossipers and the shamers and the people around you who are frightened by the fact that you are able to move forward powerfully when they are not, those people will always say things that will be designed, consciously or unconsciously. I'm not saying they're even consciously doing it. It's just their fear speaking, not their higher self cheering you on. Sometimes people will just try to hold you back because you're scaring them with how fast you move forward. So honoring your word means doing what you said you'd do when you said you were going to do it, and if you see that you're not going to be able to fulfill on it, to complete that immediately. The moment that you see that you're not going to be able to keep your word, to complete that immediately, and to be willing to clean up the mess, as we say, to handle the fallout of your broken word. Honoring your word and keeping your word are not the same thing. Honoring your word means that even when you break your word, you have access to restoring your honor, restoring your integrity, placing yourself in a place of trustworthiness and count-onableness, showing that you are reliable and proving that with your actions. So many people, and I have been one of them, because I was raised like you with blame, shame, and guilt as some version of trying to teach me integrity. Whether you had the Koran, the Torah, or the Bible held over your head as the right way to be, you were guilted into trying to behave in a certain way and told that you were wrong or bad and you will be punished if you didn't. Honoring one's word is distinct from keeping it, and restoring your honor is like a reset button. Uh-oh, I made a mistake, or I'm not going to be able to do it, or things didn't go the way I'm going to go. I'm going to reset, restore my integrity. Okay, I'm back on track. What is it going to take for me to get this done? And then continue to press forward, fulfilling your word as close to your original promise as possible. Imagine what this would be like if this principle was applied in the public domain, or in your business, in your family, in whatever organization that you're participating in. A family is a community. A couple is a community. Even if you're dating or whatever, you're in love, you have a community of, there's me, there's you, and then there's this thing that we are caring for called the relationship, and that is based on your word. It's based on making promises and keeping those promises. And I'll tell you something that we have observed, and that is how you know how much you love yourself, how much you honor yourself, is by the promises that you're willing to make and keep. If you're making little bitty promises or no promises at all, or if you find yourself always saying, well, let's see how it turns out, I'll try is the biggest fake promise I've ever heard of. It disgusts me how people go through their life trying to do something. Really? No, you either do something or you don't. You either honor your word or you don't. Things either happen like you said they will, when you said they will, or they don't. You either have your word, the commitments you made, or a story you were going to do, or a story about it. I think at this point in life, we should all be starting to get pretty much sick of the stories that people have delivered about how things didn't work out. And it's always somebody else's fault, of course. Nobody says, and it would be so refreshing if they did. I would like to help people to rediscover and to reclaim and to reassert their own integrity. Wouldn't it be great if our public figures, if the people or the leaders in your business or your family, including you, could say, you know what, I made a mistake. I said I would do this, and I didn't. No excuses, no reasons. This is not an excuse. Simply, I said I would do it, and I didn't. I didn't make it important enough. I didn't leave on time enough. I made something else more important than what I said to myself, my word, what I promised I would do. I made something else more important. I got caught up in my addictions. I thought, maybe I can have one more drink before, or eat a little later, or sleep a little later, or have more sex, or whatever is running your life in the background, because we all have some kind of addiction, even if it's just coffee, or cigarettes, but everybody's got some kind of addiction. You do, I do, everybody does. So that's just part of being human. And at every moment of your life, either your commitments, meaning your word, honoring your word, is running your life and creating your life, or your addictions. You're following your addictions. You're just, which is not bad. It's just that you're doing what you always do. You're just doing what you always do. You always do that. It's familiar. You feel safer. You don't feel the nervousness. Guilt is a very familiar feeling. We've been guilted since we were small children by religion, by our parents, by our teachers, by our coaches, by other children. So we kind of got used to guilt. In fact, you can even get addicted to guilt. And people like that. You may be one of those people who are addicted to guilt, who just go around feeling guilty all the time about everything. Especially, it's very common with mothers to raise their children and give their whole heart and soul and body for 20 years or more. And then the children don't exactly turn out like they thought they should. And so the mother goes around spending the other 20 years feeling guilty somehow. And that becomes a very addictive way of being. Because, see, you and I, we know how to handle guilt. We know how to cover up for it. We know how to pretend not to feel it. We know how to medicate ourselves so we don't feel what we already know. We're very good at that. So it's in times of nervousness, like if you make a really big promise, I will marry you on April the 4th, or I will pay my taxes on April the 15th, or whatever it is that we commit to, if it's big enough, it will scare you. You'll feel nervous. It'll feel a little nervous, or maybe a lot nervous, depending on how big the commitment is. But if you don't feel nervous, or a little bit of fear, or a lot of fear, when you are making commitments in the world, then you're playing too small. It's just a little life. It's not a life worth living or having or causing. So here's the thing. Try on discovering for yourself what I'm talking about. Don't just listen to this like it's some lecture or a good idea or what is this guy talking about. Try on the next time that someone asks you to make a commitment for something. No, don't wait until somebody asks. Make commitments. Make bold commitments. Say, you know what, I'm going to do this by then. Write it down. Tell somebody who's committed to your success. Don't tell somebody who's going to doubt you, who's going to go, yeah, right. I've heard this before. Avoid those people. Stay away from them. Don't tell them your commitments. Seriously, you think I'm kidding, but I'm not. Stay the heck away from people who are committed to disempowering you, because guess what they're committed to? They're committed to keeping you small so that they can be small and not feel threatened. So if you want to do something big and bold and powerful and create a life worth having, they're not necessarily on board for that, because it runs contrary to their commitment. They want to feel safe, they want to feel secure, and you're part of their safe little secure environment because they're used to you being small too. So if you want to outgrow that, then avoid those people and find some people who will listen to you powerfully. Like, oh yeah, you said you're going to do that? Great. Then I'm going to hold you accountable for that. And then ask them to. Say, listen, this is something I want to do. I've never done it before. I'm committed to it. I really want to make this happen. It would change my life. And I don't know how to do it. I'm scared. Will you support me? In other words, can I just call you from time to time and say, listen, I'm afraid, or I feel stupid, or I don't know how to do this, or Do you know anybody that knows how to do this? In other words, will you be my friend and actually stand for me being successful and keeping my word, honoring my word in this commitment that I'm making that's worth my life force, worth the challenge, worth the nervousness and the fear that I'm feeling. And if it's big enough, then it will challenge you mentally, emotionally, financially, physically, spiritually, psychologically. In other words, you will be challenged. If it's big enough, if it's worth doing, worth a life. In other words, I'm challenging you to really live, to be alive, to be all that you were put on this earth to be nothing less than 100% of who is always been there anyhow in your life. Not so that you could be more, not so that you can be more than others, not so that you can be better than, not so you could show up or show off, none of that, but so that you could become friends, intimate friends with the universe who has always been on your side. The universe, God, whatever you want to call it, has always been your best friend. It's always there. It's always been pulling for your success. And your access to that, your access to having more energy, power, insight than you even imagined was possible, is by befriending this universe. And how you befriend the universe, how you become best buddies with the universe, how you become in an intimate, ongoing, deeply profound, and satisfying conversation with the infinite, is by giving and honoring your word, and then cleaning it up when you see that you're not going to be able to make it or you're not going to be able to do it, and then finding out, you know, what happened and how can I avoid that next time and what am I going to do about it to make sure I never break my word again in this regard. I got a phone call, so I'm going to go ahead and take this. We have a few more minutes left. Hello, this is Gregory. You're live on the air.
Hi, Gregory. This is your...
Hi, how are you? I recognize your voice, and I hope to meet you someday if I haven't already.
I do hope to meet you someday as well.
What can I do for you?
Rest of your time. So how much do you have time?
I think I've got about 10 more minutes.
Oh, that's plenty for me.
Great.
I have a question for you. How can I help the person to change a habit?
How can you help a person from changing their to change their habit?
Not easy, huh?
Well,
is it doable at all?
Well, yes.
Something they grew up with?
Well, yes. Yes, it is. However, I've been being trained in that for years and years, and I have a pretty good success rate at it. However, the person has to want to change the habit. You can't help anybody that doesn't absolutely want to be helped. They you know, if somebody says, man, this habit is killing me, I really want to be over with it, will you support me? Now you can help them. But even then, probably will come up against some resistance, because as they get to a place where that habits, I'll say this about habits. Habits are neurological patterns, okay?
Uh-huh.
Now, you've walked through the forest, yes? And you've seen little trails where animals have walked over and over in the same place, so it makes a trail through the forest?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Habits are like those trails. So now if you wanted to cut through the forest, say, I'm never going to walk down that path again, I'm going to make my own path, you would have to cut through the dense forest to do that. And there will be a time when you don't want to do that and you will want to get back on that path. You'll just get tired. And it's just too easy to go the way you always went before. It's just very easy to go back to the old neurological pattern that you want. Now, that being understood that habits are neurological patterns and they're there for a reason. In other words, people developed these patterns because they were easier than something else they didn't want to do. Right? Either they don't want to feel something that they already know, or they don't want to know something that they already feel. And so these habits help them to do that, you see? So, so it's kind of easier than doing whatever it is that they're avoiding. Yeah. So now, if they come to you and say, okay, I'm done with this, I'm ruining my life, I don't want to do this anymore, please help me, now you can help them. And I'm going to add this caveat, it needs to cost them something. They need to have something on the table, like here's $100, or here's my car keys, or here's something like a that represents my commitment to making this happen, and if I don't do it, you can have that. Whether I do it or not, this is my commitment. Do you understand?
Yes.
A commitment has to have some kind of a physical manifestation behind it. Other words, it's just blah, blah, they're words. And because, just this is the point of my program, people are not in the habit of honoring their word. They're in the habit of breaking their word, not honoring their word, and pretending to have honored their word.
Right.
So that's a habit, right? We all have that habit. You know, we all inherited that habit. So to go against that habit would be to say, I'm not going to lie about anything ever. I'm only going to tell the truth, and I'm only going to do what I said I would do when I said I'm going to do it. That takes a very big person, and most people, they don't just go from being kind of a lazy liar, fake pretender to being somebody of integrity like that, right?
Right.
It kind of takes some work, and it takes support of people like yourself who are willing to stand by them and say, wait a minute, you asked me to support you, right? You're going off track, and I insist that you get back on track. You asked me to support you, this is what the support looks like. Stop doing this, start doing that. Okay?
Yeah, but it's a little...
Now, you understand why it's not very easy to do unless somebody asks you. They have to want it. If they don't want it, they're like, who asked you anyhow? Leave me alone.
But something that we all grew up with, I mean, isn't it in our DNA?
What's that? Well, you could say that, and certain things are. You know, certain things are. Let's say your grandfather and your father were an alcoholic. You may have a tendency to want to drink more than other people, right?
Yes.
It doesn't mean that you will become an alcoholic or that you are an alcoholic, but you might have a tendency to go that way because something in you kind of leans in that direction, you see. Mm-hmm. Right? And some things are stronger than others. My grandfather was violent with my father. My father was violent with me. I had a tendency to express myself rather violently during the whole first part of my life, and I needed a lot of help to overcome that. It was like a natural tendency for me. It just, you know, I grew up with it. Everybody in my family acted that way. So I just, you know, my first response to something I didn't like was to have an outburst, an angry outburst, you see.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, so that tendency's always there with me. I have to like manage myself. You know, it's not like I'm pretending. I've done 40 years of work on myself to rearrange myself. So, you know, and I've been severely tested a number of times where, you know, somebody that maybe needed to have a violent reaction didn't get one from me because I had trained myself to stay calm in those situations.
Well, actually, Gregory, how does one in this particular situation can change himself?
Well, he has to, again, you have to see the cost of what he's doing. He has to see it. He has to be put in front of the cost of what he's doing, and it has to be so... What's the habit that you're wanting to help somebody change?
There are a few unwanted and wild habits.
Okay.
Because the father was a dictator.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
As a result, he also acts the same towards women.
I got it. Thank you. I understand that. It may have to cost him a lot. It may have to cost him somebody he loves. He may have to have his heart thoroughly broken. He may have to give everything he's got to somebody and then lose it in order to realize that it's very, very destructive. I'm saying he may have to. If he's wise, he may, and he has a good mentor or guide, he may be able to avoid going over that cliff. You know, but a lot of times people who have had those kinds of fathers and who have really the pain, he's reacting to a pain that he has inside of his heart and his soul and his neurology, you see?
Right.
He's got some anger and some pain because he fundamentally knows that he shouldn't have been treated that way.
Very correct.
Right? We all know when something is just like, this is not how it's supposed to be. And even though we may be tiny children and we not have the words to articulate it, but we feel it in our bones, as they say, right? And it really literally is in your bones. You know, it's like in your DNA. It's like, this is not how it's supposed to be, right? And so we rebel against that, and we react against that, or we adapt.
Right.
You know, become meek and humble and yes sir, no sir, and all like that. and inside some kind of anger is building up, and then later it lashes out and it hurts people.
What kind of therapy this person would need in order to change this particular behavior?
Well, there's a number of therapies that I do recommend, and one of them is called energetic. It's traumatic release therapy, and there's a number. There's 2 or 3 types that I have studied and one that I'm certified in that has to do. Believe it or not, trauma is physical, even emotional or what we call emotional trauma or psychological trauma. It's stored in the neurology. It's in the body, and there are points in the body that release it, and people who know where those points are can actually press in on those points in a very specific environment and context and cause that to release. Another is hypnotherapy, in which you take the person back to the original incident. And there was a what happened at a specific time. And I know that it looks like there's a whole chain of them that maybe have happened over 20 years, but there's one in which a decision was made to survive, and that person's neurology shifted at that point and began to adapt to being that way, and then it became their habit, if you will. Some people call it the winning formula. It becomes the thing that you fall back on whenever you feel fearful, challenged, anything like that. Then you just go back to this winning formula, which was your original way of dealing with
Actually, like a
that
shelter.
trauma. Well, yeah, like a shelter. Like, you know, if you got scared and you acted scared and cried and you survived that, then every time you got scared, you would just act like a victim, right? And hopefully they would leave you alone because, you know, I'm meek and I'm a victim. Or if you acted really smart and intelligent and clever and funny and you survived, then you would always, every time you got afraid, you would do that, you see, some version of being brilliant or smart or clever or funny. Or if you were forceful and fought back and you somehow won, or at least survived, then you might try that, you see? So different people adapt to different ways of being in order to survive an original trauma, and they try it again the next time. They go, hey, that worked. So by the time you're in your 20s, you've developed 2 or 3 of these things that you rely on, and you always use one or the other of them, and somehow or another you manage to survive in life, although you're never happy, because all you're doing is surviving, not living. And because you fundamentally know that deep in your heart and your soul that you're not living, you're just getting by, you're surviving until the next trauma comes along. And in fact, you get so good at it that you actually cause those traumas to happen to you predictably so that you can keep doing your thing, because that's all you got.
Exactly.
That's all you got. It's like, you know, who the heck is Superman if he never gets to wear the cape, right? What if he had to be Clark Kent all the time? How boring. So Superman needs emergencies so he can be Superman. The gunslinger needs bad guys so that they can, like, have somebody to shoot. Otherwise, what's the deal? They got nothing. Yeah, they have to go get another job.
Right.
So dictators
Very well said.
Dictators need victims. Dictators need people that they can dominate and scare and all that stuff. Because otherwise, who are they going to dictate? They got to have somebody to push around.
Unfortunately, this victim is one of their family members.
Well, it usually is.
Wives or husbands or...
Yeah, because other people that are not the family member just say, hey, buzz off. I don't put up with that. Who are you to talk to me like that, right?
Exactly.
Or they get out of there, they look, they stop inviting them to the party or going over to their house or whatever. You know, if you're not in the family, you can get away from those guys. But if you're in the family, like, haha, I got the perfect person to victimize, they can't get away from.
A man of character, responsibility, and resourcefulness. Become that man and join us on the journey towards manhood, finding a better person within. Embrace Growth is offering the Honor, Integrity, and Mastery Workshop in Toronto, Yerevan, and Los Angeles. Sign up today at embracegrowth.com and see the transformation in your life. The Embrace Growth app is finally here. You start by signing in just as you would online, and from there, you'll see all of your account settings. Once in the app, you'll have access to events and all of Embrace Growth's original content. Registering for workshops and seminars is easier than ever. and tools for managing your profile and options are built right in. Schedule private sessions and connect with the global Embrace Growth community. Download it today on the App Store.
Welcome to the all-new EmbraceGrowth.com. You'll have access to all the content you love at the click of a button. Videos of seminars, events, and the ability to sign up for workshops. Direct access to digital downloads right from your mobile devices. Stay in the know and see our latest graduate events. Watch your favorites anytime, anywhere. Visit us today at EmbraceGrowth.com.
در کارگاه‌های آموزشی بانوان به رهبری دکتر آزیتا سایان با دستیابی به اهمیت و ارزش واقعی خود، قدرت زنانگی و آرامش خود را بازیابید. محیطی مناسب و هیجان انگیز برای رشد و شکوفایی عشق، ازدواج و خانواده خلق کنید. زنی شاد باشید، قلب مردان را بشناسید و آنها را درک کنید. کارگاه آموزشی بانوان ایروان 14 تا 16 دسامبر، اروپا 20 تا 22 آپریل. برای ثبت نام با تخفیف ویژه پاییزی با شماره 310 460 2600 تماس بگیرید.
A haven for the weary soul, a source of inspiration and community, redesigned to bring you meaningful experiences and unforgettable events. We are a worldwide community of vibrant individuals, displayed in the people who are a part of it, from many nations, backgrounds, and beliefs. Through powerful outreach programs, the struggles of everyday life are confronted and conquered, transforming those who participate into the best versions of themselves. One-on-one sessions are available to keep you headed in the right direction, coupled with the best resources to remind you how to live, whether at home or elsewhere. Programs designed for men, providing the building blocks of maturity, commitment, integrity, and leadership, paving the way for productive and fulfilling manhood. Beyond an understanding of masculine leadership is its application in daily life and development into something truly unique. Exclusive training for women, encouraging growth and empowerment through an acceptance of their true identities, redefining interactions, and changing the viewpoint through which life is seen. Embracing the woman within and accessing facets of your personality hidden beneath the surface. Showing our youth the value of integrity and reliability by creating an indwelling desire to succeed with honor, basing the future on a solid foundation of ideals that will guide them through life, leading by example, and showing others how to clearly convey their thoughts in a compelling way, creating a culture of mature leaders who can help others achieve self-confidence and their goals. Real people and real lives are changed for the better. With every event, more are touched and come to an understanding of their place in this world and their community. Embrace Growth is run by a passionate team and led by the diligence and inspiration of Dr. Azita Sayan and Mr. Gregory Morgan, who consistently teach life lessons based on what works, rather than the passing fads of the times.